was meditating on my day yesterday. So I took the day off, and I used that day to press hard at home care. I deal with a massive amount of shit that piles up because of everything else that I gotta do. And then I turn around, and before I realize it, I just need to fucking like sit down. I can't physically do anything else, and then I have to pick up on other things, right? So yesterday I had twofold of work to do. There was external work and internal work. So a little bit of macro, micro cosms, if you will, the within and the without. As I had to take care of the lawn outside, as well as take care of some much needed organizing, because the organizational process in my home has been slow, just because it's a shared home, and we all understand the situation, right? And so it takes a deal of communication with other people before I can do stuff, and then I have to find the time to do it when I'm in the midst of all sorts of things, all sorts of chores, all sorts of priorities, right? Because, do I do the dishes or do I practice guitar? Because I'm really tired and the dishes got to get done, but also the guitar has to be done. And it's very easy to just dismiss the guitar when you are trying to straighten everything out on the back end while trying to get your talent back up to par, right? And because of course in the long game you really quest to get there, right? Just like there's a whole backdrop of me making good music, that I am forcing myself to figure it out on my own at this point, because something just doesn't feel right about anybody that is in my field of awareness, right? So you just gotta get a serious load of things done, right? I've had a cabinet space I've needed to clear out to make room for more clothes and things like that, and to put everything in a cohesive place in the house, right? And then as I work on these things, that puts less bullshit for me to deal with on my mental plate, and thus gives me more time to focus on new things instead of just building up on the basics. Right? So there's a lot of people I like to talk to when I put out stuff that have the same struggles and strifes that I did, just because at a certain point, I was listening to everybody who was in the same boat as me, had all sorts of problems, and then I was looking at this like, I got these problems, I know what I have to do about it, and I wasn't doing anything about it, but because I knew for a long time, I just said nothing. I had every other excuse in the book, right? And then I would just and then when I started doing stuff about my problems, and I told other people about, oh, look what like I realized I was having this problem, that problem, and then I did this. And people would basically give me the good for you kind of answer to that, meaning that that's not good for them, even though they're coming from the same place as me, kind of externally seeming like the same mentality, right? But it's not, right? That's when I slowly began to realize how little people want to help themselves, right? I'm very well aware of all things. Like, if you come into my house, it's just like, I'm not going to pretend I'm not ashamed that something is out of place, right? And I don't want to make excuses, and therefore I don't want to put up a front, right? And typically we don't talk about these things because that's personal life stuff. But I'm kind of doing a thing that is talking to you about personal life stuff to kind of show you, like, because I want to be the anomaly that you don't have to be polite around, if you will, right? Because I'm very used to seeing this world that's thrown in front of you, where people are too polite to correct you about stuff, probably under the assumption that you have a belief system around it that you're attached to, like everyone else. I may have a belief system attached around a wrongness that I have, but I'm not attached to that belief system. I just haven't, right? Because guess what? We don't all know everything. Even if you're tapped into the Akashic records, or your higher self and everything else, like, you just don't know everything, right? You're not supposed to know everything. You're left with a certain level of mystery, and some of us have a disposition to go into speculative territory. To work out a thought exercise, to say, like, I want to talk about this because I'm looking for the evidence, and also I need to entertain my imagination, right? Because that's where things like Tartaria went wrong, was their inability to entertain it in the imagination, to say, okay, I'm kind of like weaving a hypothetical story in my head to make sense of what I am looking at in the historical record for the first time with new eyes, right? But a lot of people got really, really attached to X, Y, and Z assumptions about this out of context records of history. The odd statement that sounds like science fiction, the odd picture that looks like science fiction, and the presumptions of how far that goes. How's it going, Tomato, who has just written a line? All right. Thanks, Tomato. Good talk. Right? And so this is why you have, like, this association between your internal world and your internal thoughts, right? Like, the way that your house is organized is going to reflect on the way your mind is organized, right? And I've had to push my organizations around quite a few times, just because I am very apt to acquiring so much knowledge that it can stack up in the mind like a hoard, and thus, like, if there's laundry all over the fucking floor in the room, it's kind of like ideas I haven't reconciled all across my mindscape. So we clean our room, it's a meditative practice, and then that also cleans your mind, not like brainwashing. You're defragging, right? Like that's what, like, you know, when you're putting your shit away, you're defragging because now you've made space without losing anything. Because you know how to defrag, you know how to reorganize and compact, and have efficiency of space. That's what defragging a hard drive is designed to do. That shit used to take like 12 to 24 hours back in the day to do. Now it seems like it defrags it within like an hour, if that. But anyway. So we've had far too much trouble in the world of looking at something and either keeping it sitting amongst trash, and thus it looks like trash when it's actually a treasure. Eventually got to replace this phone because the plug is now loose on it. It's just wear and tear bullshit. So yeah. Anyway, my point is that you can end up just leaving the truth sitting amongst the lies, thus contextualizing the truth around a lie, and thus you don't believe the truth anymore, right? And that was the essential problem with the entire conversation about mud flood and Tartarian and things like that. And I always went into it with that disseminating lens, kind of like jumping on it from an entertained imagination, and then seeing if my imagination panned out, and then stripping away what wasn't right in my thinking. As I gained more knowledge, went back over new assumptions. You know, this is why I really enjoy the work of Mind Unveiled and Awar and Wood Nichols, because they demonstrate that they're really interested in the truth by the way that they can find the one piece that completely recontextualizes everything, and now you know what you can dismiss as untrue or out of context entirely. And even if it makes the truth seem more mundane than it actually is, because perhaps it was mundane in that framework of history and reality, you end up discovering other things, which is why there was like the whole Shadowrun series that Awar and Woody got into, you know, because there was, you know, architectural guilds and things like that, and understanding that there was some sort of mystery tradition behind these builders, right? And that those builders were in Tartary, right? But, you know, Tartary had a different characterization in history, in the real history, than it did in the assumptions of the Tartarian narrative. And Tartary, I'm just using as an example, right? You know, we can say the same thing for Nazis on the moon. You can say the same thing for, well, everybody has a flood myth, right? You know, you can say that about all these different things, right? Some of them are more palatable, imaginative thought forms than others, right? And I mean, you need those imaginative thought forms. You know, Hollywood wouldn't have a job unless people were kind of playing with it. You know, everybody loves in science fiction the concept of steampunk, Victorian era steampunk. Everybody wants their airships and their fancy cars that are running right next to a horse and carriage, because haha, look at me with my technology that's way above your Wild West bullshit, and all this stuff. And yeah, the process of clearing out your space is a process of clearing out your head, so that way everything is you have your internal canvas, right? You have your space to place things and walk around them and put your time and energy into that, right? Because you don't have to let the clutter that you didn't have time for stress you the fuck out. Fighting Social. Sub to your channel. Oh, well, thank you. I've been enjoying a good injection of support since my James True interview. So I highly recommend everyone check out my interview with James True. It's one of my most important recent interviews. I had a lot of fun with Joe Phipps of Library of the Untold. So this channel's a little multifaceted. I do this. I do my sit-down presentations, like my readings. Like I'm reading Heidegger right now. Then I've got interviews that I do on occasion. Right? I do all those things on this channel. And I'm over 240 subs now. That's great. It's going to be a long time to get over 220 or something like that. I think that's what it was. I think it was around 220. No, was it 189? No, I think I was under 200 actually. I think I was just under a hair under 200. And then after the James True interview, I jumped over 200 by a couple of subs, and it's been on a good incline since, including during the rantings that I took down many of those rantings because of how sensitive they were, and I felt that they had been there long enough to establish my point in the psychic field, and didn't need to harp over all of that that emotional channeling, if you will. What is actually wrong with me? Draconian methods. Draconian methods. I think you're from Library, right? I think I saw you on Library of the Untold. What's wrong with me? Oh, I talk about what's wrong with me all the time. Are you asking because I kind of mentioned earlier, how I talk about like my problems here a little bit? The thing is that like it's like whatever's like wrong with me. I mean, like I only bring it up when I'm kind of like doing like these kinds of self-reflective kind of things, because is there anything wrong with me? No. There's something wrong with my ability to have some of the normal social cues. I got a little bit of that going on. I grew up with far too much play in my life. I grew up a little bit spoiled and underdeveloped in maturity and discipline, while focusing on a whole lot of other things and just a lot of chaos in my own little blind cage that I built for myself, my own little mind prison. And it took me a long time through a lot of distractions to go through change, and I even let doing things like fighting all the conspiracy shit in the world be kind of a distraction. You know, as I was doing shit like that in 2012 when I hit Revolution Radio, you know, and I'm sure I cringed out on a number of occasions, embarrassed myself on a number of occasions, and all that fun stuff. But I also did a lot of incredible work at Revolution Radio that I am proud of, because the conversations I had there were foundational towards things that eventually broke through in the real world. And, you know, there's a handful of those interviews from back in the day that you can find here on the channel. From the vault stuff, or legacy sources of me. Some of the legacy sources of me is like music, which I really should put that on the Zerlath Shreds channel as a playlist. What are you convicted by? Convicted by? If you mean like my convictions, I gotta get to work. I am convicted to serve the higher force. People say God, and I don't want people to get a monotheist, Abrahamic sense of that, but it is to serve the higher force. Yeah, like what? Yeah, like what? Thank you for asking me that. Yeah, that's the simple answer, and maybe I will talk about that more in depth on my lunch break or something. I'll catch you guys later.